In this presentation, we will be discussing the Space Shuttle Challenger catastrophe of 1986. We will converse both the mechanical discrepancy that led to the disaster and the poor ethical decisions that allowed for such an event to unfold. The Challenger launch had already been delayed for a non-related issue, and there was an ever-growing political pressure to launch Challenger, partially due to NASA's wish to make space flight seem like a safe option for anyone, thereby garnering public support and excitement for the program. The plan to convince the public of this was NASA's Teacher in Space program. On January 26, 1986, Space Shuttle Challenger launched. Krista McAuliffe was on board as the first participant of the Teacher in Space program. The launch was normal, yet 70 seconds into the flight, the O-rings on the solid rocket booster failed to seat properly, causing hot combustion gas to burn through the external fuel tank, resulting in an immense explosion that destroyed the entire shuttle. The crew on board would not survive. There was concern that both the primary and secondary O-rings on the solid rocket booster could fail due to the extreme low temperatures. The night before, the temperature fell to 8 degrees Fahrenheit, and at the time of launch, the temperature was 28 degrees. These concerns were addressed on January 27, 1986, the night before the Challenger launch, during a teleconference between engineers at Morton Thiokol, NASA engineers in Alabama, and management at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. During this call, engineers from Morton Thiokol expressed their concern that the O-rings would not seat properly in below freezing temperatures, and advising against launching under 52 degrees Fahrenheit, the lowest temperature that the rocket booster had ever been tested. At lower temperatures, the O-rings were not as flexible, and as a result, they would not seal properly to keep the hot combustion gases from escaping. Ultimately, management at Morton Thiokol ignored the warnings from their engineers and informed NASA engineers and management that there shall be no temperature restrictions for the launch. Both O-rings on the solid rocket booster failed 70 seconds into the flight, and hot combustion gases were released onto the liquid fuel tank. This burned a hole in the tank and ignited the liquid from inside, causing the shuttle to explode. Thiokol designed the solid rocket boosters based on the Titan rocket design, but due to increased size and weight of the shuttle, the solid rocket boosters were made larger and more powerful. The higher pressure resulting from a more powerful rocket led to a greater chance of hot gases leaking from the booster. This is a problem that Thiokol engineers were aware of and made attempts to remedy during design. They added a second O-ring as a backup and a layer of putty over the joint. During the launch, the year before Challenger, the coldest yet for the shuttle program, Roger Boisjoly observed that the primary O-ring failed and the secondary O-ring was partially compromised. This led to an initial concern that the catastrophic failure may happen in a low-temperature launch. In the following months, Boisjoly tried to draw attention to the O-ring issue, but was told by his bosses that the issue was not ideal, but was acceptable. His attempts to stop what he viewed as an inevitable disaster were ethical, but when lives are on the line, one should not allow their concerns to be brushed to the side. Management was wrongfully under the impression that productivity is possibly more important than safety. This unacceptable, unethical decision-making would continue by management of Thiokol until the launch of Challenger.
Some more things that made management decide to go against the ethical standards and ignore the engineer concerns were that they had a lot of pressure being placed on them from politics because they had already missed the first scheduled launch due to complications elsewhere, and the vice president at the time, George H. Bush, was scheduled to attend this launch. The boosters on this mission had to be bigger to hold more fuel and create more power. To produce more power, the boosters had to have more pressure inside them. The engineers knew to be able to hold the greater pressure, they would have to come up with a new way to seal the boosters. What they came up with was to put two O-rings and also put putty on the O-rings at the joints. Tests were done on this and it appeared to work at warmer temperatures, but they did not do any tests at the lower temperatures. The night before, it got down to a record low of 8 degrees, and the day of the launch, it was only 28 degrees. At the lower temperatures, the rubber O-rings became less flexible, resulting in the O-rings not sealing properly. This let hot gases escape, which cut through the fuel tanks like a welder's torch. Once it got to the fuel tanks, fuel started escaping, and then the shuttle completely broke apart into pieces, resulting in all the fuel being released and vaporizing rapidly. NASA was afraid that if they delayed the launch again, that they would lose the support that Vice President Bush had for them. Many discussions were held prior to the launch regarding if they should go through with it. Eventually, the political side won, which brought up the saying, "Take off your engineering hat and put on your management hat." So in the end, the launch should have never happened until further testing were made on the joints. Roger Boisjoly and Arnold Thompson were the two lead engineers that stated that the data as to whether the O-rings would withhold was insufficient, but management ignored their concerns. There was a major lack in integrity at both companies, from mostly just wanting to please people in politics and not thinking about the safety of the people that were actually going to be aboard the shuttle. The results of this disaster is put on the people that made the final decision to launch. At the end of the day, all of this could have been avoided if the code of ethics would have been enforced. One of these people was Robert Lund, the vice president of Thiokol, which ignored his engineering ethics just to please NASA. From the disaster, we lost fathers, husbands, brothers, sisters, and wives only due to wrong decisions being made.
Dr. Sedha, if you have any questions regarding our presentation, please email us. Thank you for your time.